with the Directorate of Weather Forecasting Services. Kopango, Mr. Morning. Nice to have you with us. First of all, give us a picture. We see a lot of changing in the patterns of weather. First of all, in the seasons that we naturally had as Uganda, the 4 seasons. It's no longer the same. We used to expect rains in certain months. Now that those rains have shifted and come in different months altogether. So there's a whole change in the patterns of the seasons, the weather, the climate in Uganda. What is leading to these changes?
Thank you so much. Thank you, the moderator. First, I would like to thank NTV for inviting us, at least to inform the public. Well, it is true the climate is changing. At the same time, it is also varying. Because when we talk of changes, we normally have to look at a period of not less than 30 years. Looking back 30 years ago, how was it and what is it right now? So that we are in a position to tell that something has already changed. But at the same time, it is also varying. When we talk about the variation, it can be month to month. Like this year, like right now we are in August, we might find that the pattern of rainfall this year was quite different from last year, August. So that one we attribute it to the variability. So when we look at these particular changes and the variation of the climate, it is not only in Uganda, it is in the world at large. And there are so many factors which are bringing this. Some of the factors are what is happening within the country. Other factors are some of the things which is happening in other developed countries. Because what developed countries are doing, it is not something which will only impact the climate in their area, but it will also cut across the rest of the world. So we will find that the climate itself, naturally, it is changing. But if we are to leave it, human being, if we leave it to be changing by itself, it will not be so advanced like this. But now human being is also putting some input into the increased changes of the climate. That is where things are going bad. So I start with the global at large. With the global at large, we look at the industrialization, the heavy industries across the developed countries. You see these people are emitting a lot of these gases in the atmosphere. And these gases results, they're emitting what is called the carbon dioxide gas. The carbon dioxide gas is the greenhouse gas. And the greenhouse gas is one of the major effects of the increased temperature across the world. I bring it within the country. Within the country, we are doing a lot of things also. Take, for example, like we are cutting trees around. We are also encroaching on the environment, on the wetland. Then at the same time, we are also doing some other activities which we are emitting these gases in the atmosphere. So those are the kind of things that we need to be very careful in looking at it, so that we don't encroach on the wetland around. We don't need to encroach on the forest. We don't need to cut these forests around, because those forests moderate the local climate of the place. And you see, if you go to the local people, they will tell you that those days there were so many forests around this place, and the rainfall pattern over this place was quite different. But nowadays, all the forests had already been cut. And they can say that that could be the explanation why our rainfall is disappearing. Okay. So,
Mr. Moni, you have mentioned very interesting factors that contribute to the climate change that we see now over a stretch of 30 years. Industrialization is one of them. Of course, for the global, you get to look at industrialization that has been there and has been pronounced for a very long time. In Africa, it was in certain countries. In Uganda, it's seemingly growing because of the investment and also acceptance of others to come and invest into the country, which is boosting our industrialization, which again is going to come down to green gases. So what are you as an authority actually doing about this presence of industrialization? Are there control measures that you are giving the investment authority to consider when they're giving out pieces of land to investors to put up industries?
Yeah, thank you. You know, with industrialization, we cannot stop it, because we cannot even survive without the outcome of this industrialization. So we know the side effect is there, which is so bad. Then what can we do? So one of the most important things we have to do is we have to get an adaptive measures onto this changing pattern of the climate. So there are so many adaptive measures that the government and even the world at large need to put in place. Then at the same time also we look at the mitigation measures. So looking at like the increased temperature which is happening across the world, even in Uganda, what can we do? Number one thing, we need to do afforestation. That is one most important thing. So that when we do afforestation, because it will act as a sink to these gases which is emitted in the atmosphere. This gas is the one which is increasing the temperature of the world.
So let me get you straight. Where you do have an industry, create a forest around the industry so that the forest can be able to retaliate the impact of the green gas.
Exactly. Not only within the industries, but we need to spread it out across the whole country. Because it might not only be from that particular industries, we are also getting these impact from the gases from those developed countries. So in fact, they filtered up to our country, Uganda. That implies we need to spread planting of trees across. In addition to that, our local wetland area. You know, if you are sitting near the wetland area, you feel the weather is quite different from when you are away from it. If you look at places which do not have wetland, and they do not have like mountains, even mountain is also a very good kind of features which moderate the local climate of the place. Then the forest, those are good features which moderate the local climate of the place. So like for mountain, of course we cannot plant mountain. So forest, we need to do it. Wetland, we don't need to encroach in it.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, as you speak right now, we're in day 3 of NEMA and environmental police at Lubiji trying to evict people who have encroached on the Lubiji wetland there. Let's talk about the impact of encroachment onto wetlands on society, on social, economic, and perhaps even political.
Yeah, the impact is really very serious because when we encroach on this wetland, you know, the water which is available there will start reducing. Now, when that water reduces, you know, this water normally when it is evaporating. The process of evaporating, it will really moderate the local climate of the place. At the same time, when during the rainfall, when rainfall season is coming, you find that area, the kind of rainfall which can be experienced at that place is quite different from area which is far. Because where the water is present, there is always evaporation taking place. Now, this water which is evaporating, it will go up in the sky, it forms a cloud which comes back as rain. So the absence of that will impact the local community so much negatively.
Okay, let's go to other parts of Uganda. In the east, we have seen so many rainfalls, sudden rainfalls that are causing sudden flooding. Flooding that has taken not only the lives of people, but has also changed and altered the livelihood of those that are native to that area. And yet, in Karamoja, you are having drought. This is in the same country. And if geographically, it is almost in the same line, if we can say that. Can you explain this to us?
Thank you. That is a very good question. You see, the distribution of rainfall across the country is not uniform. It is really moderated by so many factors. Factor one, our rainfall pattern is defined in a given period of time and over a given place. Let me give an example. Uganda is sitting over rainfall season. The whole part of Uganda is sitting over rainfall season in 2 seasons. Season 1 is the period of March, April, and May. That is when the whole country will be supposed to be on rain.
So when you say whole country, it's raining in the east, it's raining in the west, it's raining in the north, it's raining in the south and central.
Exactly.
Okay.
Then the second season is during the season of September, October, November. That is also the period where all part of Uganda should be getting into rain. But when we come to like June, July, and August, the June, July, August, you find rainfall, we call it rainfall belt. That is where rainfall is concentrated. So that period of June, July, August, the rainfall is normally concentrated in the northern part of the country and some part of eastern. Karamoja, sometimes it is in the eastern, if we are to talk about it, the rainfall regime. Karamoja, it has some little rainfall compared to the eastern part and the northern part of the country. Like the recent one, let me say currently, there is so much rainfall over eastern Uganda, even northern Uganda, but when you go to Karamoja, you find little rainfall. What is the causes of that one? Number one, we look at the wind. Because the wind, we call it is a vehicle for transporting our water vapor over a given place. So when water vapor is transported over a place, then it will give rise to formation of cloud, which comes back as rain.
Yeah, which winds are usually around more mountainous areas than they are around flatland.
Yeah.
Okay, geographically.
So when we look at the wind pattern, the prevailing wind pattern over Karamoja, quite different from the one over other part of the country. Meaning, the kind of wind which is prevailing over Karamoja, it is associated with aridity or little rainfall formation. But when you come to Mbale area, Teso sub-region, you find the kind of wind which is blowing, those one really carries a lot of water vapor, which can result into a lot of precipitation.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that makes sense. Now we get to understand how that comes about, that there's drought in Karamoja, and then there is lots of rainfall in areas of the eastern part of Uganda. Now we look at the Uganda National Meteorological Center. You know, Uganda is actually surviving on agriculture. The poor are surviving on subsistence agriculture, and the country is surviving on some of these cash crops to actually keep the economy running and, you know, money coming in. Now, you as the Meteorological Authority actually went ahead to tip farmers on when they should be sowing, given the changes that you have talked about. There was the anticipation of the rains that just concluded, the 2-3 months ago that you have mentioned, and so we're waiting for the September, October, November season that you have talked about, of which we're not sure how climate change generally is going to affect how much rain is going to come through that season. So to the people who are in farming, what is the way forward as you know, as advice from the Meteorological Authority?
Okay, thank you. Uganda National Meteorological Authority normally issue 3 seasonal rainfall forecasts. The first one for the month of March, April, and May. Then the second one, June, July, August. Then the last season of the year is September, October, November. We currently, as we talk, we are in the season of June, July, and August, and which was issued by the end of May. As we talk right now, we are in the process of issuing the September, October, November. We are working on it. It is almost coming to a completion. By the end of next week, it will be out. We are going to release it officially. So, in the current rainfall season, what did we say? Number one, of course, the June, July, August. This is not the rainfall season for central Uganda, western, and southwestern, because the rainfall belt is always shifted to the northern part of the country. So we also indicated very clearly that that is the rainfall season for northern Uganda, eastern Uganda, and some part of area around the lake normally get this rainfall due to the moderation of the forest around and also the lake, that is Lake Victoria. So advice to the farmers in those regions, one, that is like a central area which is not supposed to be in rainfall season, they were to keep on preparing their garden and also to continue harvesting their crops which they were planted in the first season. But for northern Uganda, we encourage farmers to continue planting because that is the rainfall season. But something went wrong. That is the climate change and the variation which happen always. The rainfall which we were supposed to receive in northern Uganda by June, July, August, it could not come in time. It delays. In fact, the whole month of June and July, we did not get something good. Instead, rain came back by August. What happened? Our rainfall is driven by some other factors. We call it the weather system that drives our rainfall. And one of the systems is the oceans, that is the water bodies. We know the ocean has a large water bodies, and this water always we monitor, that is the Met services across the world, we monitor the temperature of the oceans. Whenever the temperature is rising more above the average, it will pump a lot of water vapor in the atmosphere. So we look at it, then the wind will be the one to blow this water vapor. Where the wind will be taking this water vapor will determine the enhancement of rainfall over that place. If the wind is taking that water vapor away from the country, that implies a particular part of the country will be completely suppressed from rainfall. So this year, it was a reverse. If you look at the 20, I want to give an example of the 2019. 2019, Uganda received a lot of rainfall by the end of the year.
Yeah,
and this rainfall spill even in the following
December,
year.
January, February, yes.
So that was due to the influence of the increased temperature over the Indian Ocean. And this year, it is a reverse. The reverse is the temperature instead lowers down. By lowering, it suppresses our rainfall. Instead, the wind now comes from over the land, eastern part of Africa, over Africa. The wind is blowing, going that side of Australia, meaning we do not receive any water vapor, which is spilling over our country. That is the cause of suppression of rainfall during this period.
Okay, Judge William, you need to be telling us these things more often, so that as a country we are,
yes.
when you have knowledge, you have power to make decisions, better decisions. Okay, so as we come to a conclusion, how do we tackle this? Because you've mentioned deforestation, which is a business, by the way, in Uganda. People put up forests only to cut them down, get charcoal so that they can sell it and make a living. And then we get to survive on the charcoal as a country, but which emits green gases and affects the environment. You've talked about wetland encroachment. I mean, I don't know any wetland in Uganda that is not encroached on. And you are still seated here. Nema is still seated in that direction. You have talked about industrialization, which we cannot live without. It is the future of the economy in this country. So looks like we're at a crossroad right now. So how do we tackle what is causing us crossroads to be able to protect the future of our environment as Uganda?
Okay, thank you. With the changes of the climate and the variation, it is something which is already in place. We cannot run away from it, and we cannot stop it. So what should we do? We need to live with it. And to live with it, meaning we have to look for adaptation measures and the mitigation measures. In that, the government and other development partners need to inject a lot of funding so that the rural poor should get a way of adapting to this. And one of these, even the government of Uganda is doing a lot of things. Like, for example, because of this changing pattern of the climate, because some of the crops which used to do very well those days, nowadays they are not doing well. So, like Ministry of Agriculture is doing wonders, like particularly Naro. Now is coming up with new species of what crops which can really mature within few period of time.
Adapt to the current climate. Okay.
So you find these crops, even if drought comes or flood comes, at least by the time it comes, it has already matured.
All right.
Unlike those one which takes like 3-4 months, so it can easily be affected by that.
Well, thank you so much, George. Yes. It was a pleasure, an insightful one to have you with us on the morning show talking about the climate changes that we are seeing here and how they are actually caused by things that are happening not just in Uganda but globally. The most interesting for me has been the wind direction and how it actually leads to drought and rainfall in different parts of Uganda. So he has talked about adaptation methods and mitigation methods that we can adopt individually, private sector, and of course government has to play their part. Okay, well, thank you so much, and I trust that that has been mind-opening for you. Away from that, we continue. We're going to also be having a discussion around tourism. Later on, we shall be looking at IT and how it can be used as a tool to sort out the rural-urban challenges. Do stay with us.